Palestine. You're watching Washington, D.C., the south lawn of the White House, where those people sitting there are waiting for an historic moment in Middle East politics. 3,000 invited guests who are waiting for the arrival of the players in this momentous occasion in which the PLO and Israel agree to recognize one another, and a timetable is put in place for Palestinian autonomy in the Gaza Strip and West Bank. It's a big day in Washington, D.C.
There'll be no anthems, no flags flying for this agreement. This will be the first time that Yitzhak Rabin has met Yasser Arafat, two avowed enemies for decades, who, after a series of negotiations took place in Norway between the PLO and Israel, have come to this agreement, the Gaza-Jericho first option, which is being signed in Washington, which is an interesting story which we'll get to as well.
That's right. This ceremony today will probably last close to an hour, and we'll watch it as it happens. The document itself is going to be signed on the same desk on which the Camp David Accords were signed, a desk that was built back in the 1860s and which has been used for historic occasions several times in Washington. We're going to be assisted in our coverage this morning of this event by Mark Bruzonsky in Washington, who is the chair of the Jewish Committee on the Middle East. Mark, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And Jana Stein is with us here in Toronto, Middle East analyst.
Good morning, Keith.
Who has been with us on many occasions also. And usually in situations where we have to say, boy, things look tense. We're going back to Washington now. And a much more positive outlook this morning, although I think Mark is a bit of a skeptic about how this may turn out. For today, at least, there's tremendous optimism about the fact that they are, there she is, that these people are actually going to sit down at the same desk and sign a piece of paper, and we don't know yet whether or not the two main players are actually going to shake hands, though I suspect they may.
Or do what Yasser Arafat often does in these occasions as he greets heads of state, which is with a great bear hug.
Dana Lewis joins us now from our bureau in the Middle East. Dana, good morning.
Good morning, Keith.
What is the mood there as these preparations go on the south lawn of the White House?
Well, there is a real festive mood here, something really to see. It's been surprisingly nonviolent, surprisingly peaceful so far. That's in Gaza, in Jericho, across the West Bank. Right now, I'm just outside the American consulate in East Jerusalem. And across the street in a soccer stadium, thousands of Palestinians have been singing and marching. Right here in the streets of Jerusalem, there was a long parade. And I can tell you that people were doing two things that just a few days ago they would be arrested for here. They're openly flying Palestinian flags, flying them from car windows, from rooftops, and they're also carrying pictures of the man that they say is their leader, Yasser Arafat. And I should just mention the Israeli army is on full alert. They're very worried that there could be violence today, but so far it's been quiet. They're staying on the sidelines. You'll see them on street corners, but they're obviously trying to avoid trouble and make this a good day.
Interesting and possibly symbolic reaction, Dana, from Lebanon, which was cracking down on Hezbollah guerrillas. Does it appear that the countries around Israel are beginning to feel as if they can come on board here?
I think that there is some hope that very quickly things could begin to move on Jordan. But in an interview yesterday, Yitzhak Rabin seemed surprisingly, in my view, negative about progress and talks with Syria. He feels that Syria has been interfering in Lebanon, that Syria should allow the Lebanese government to do just what you have indicated that they've started to do a little bit in Beirut, and that is clamp down on the Hezbollah and control terror attacks against Israel. But there's still a long way to go on those fronts, as there is on the Palestinian front. We are a long way from peace here.
Thank you, Dana. Jana Stein in Toronto, you concur that we're still a long way from peace, or is that the way we should look at the events today?
No, I don't think so. I think we've taken a huge step forward. This is really a dramatic change, and the alternative is so terrible, Keith, that we are really beginning a new process. There are going to be plenty of stumbling blocks along the way, but the key thing is that this really is a sea change in the Middle East, more so, I think, even than the Camp David Accords between Egypt and Israel.
Mark Bruzonsky, do you concur?
You know, in the euphoria of what's happening at the moment, we won't know for 6 months or a year what this really means. Today there's a great deal of festivity, but of course there's also a strike that Hamas has called, and I understand many of the shops in Gaza and East Jerusalem are closed and on strike. They will attempt to make this agreement work for both sides. It's an odd political marriage, and we've all been asked to come and witness the marriage of the oddest of the odd couples. On the other hand, the central issues of the conflict have been left unresolved. We don't know what's going to happen to Jerusalem, to settlements, to Palestinian refugees, to Palestinian statehood. It may well be a start. Many people are saying it is a start to real mutual recognition and Palestinian statehood. So far, what it is a defeated Palestinian leadership that was totally bankrupt, cornered, had nowhere to go, and instead of declaring defeat, they decided to accept what they always said they wouldn't accept, which is very limited autonomy, and declare it defeat. And that's why Yasser Arafat is here. He conceded, he cried uncle, he did what he had always been told he must do, and what he'd always said he wouldn't do. Having done it, he was told to come and sign the documents.
Now, you talk about it as a marriage. There was a good line from Abba Eban who said, you know, we're witnessing the birth of peace, but in order for there to be a birth, the parents have to meet sometime, which is extraordinary that we will see today for the first time Yitzhak Rabin talk with his avowed enemy of many decades, Yasser Arafat. I just want to go through the key players, I guess, who are right now in the Blue Room at the White House. And again, this meeting will be first taking place between Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin. Al Gore, the vice president, is going to be the person who leads them out to the stage, followed by the Israeli Foreign Minister Shimon Peres, who is the one who did a great deal of the negotiating for this in Norway, and has been an adversary of Rabin's politically over many years of Israeli politics, but they have worked together closely on getting this through. The PLO political director, Mahmoud Abbas, will be there to sign. U.S. Secretary of State Warren Christopher, Russian Foreign Minister Andrei Kozyrev, and then bringing up the rear, President Clinton, then flanked by Yitzhak Rabin on the right and Yasser Arafat on his left. And representing Canada at the ceremony today is our External Affairs Minister, Perrin Beatty.
The West, of course, as Mr. Beatty has said, will have a considerable role in trying to make this work.
We're seeing the back of Mr. Beatty's head there.
There he is, yes. Among the 3,000 guests who've been gathering and are now prepared for this ceremony to take place. It began, by the way, the roots of it are in April 1992. There was an academic meeting in Tel Aviv during which a Norwegian researcher offered to arrange in secret a contact between Israel and the PLO, and that meeting bore some fruit.
Let me just tell you, Keith, that the reason the Norwegian researcher got involved was directly as a result of our chairmanship of the Multilateral Conference on Refugees. The first contacts between the Norwegians, the Israelis, and the Palestinians were made through Canadians. So this is really a proud moment in the history of Canadian diplomacy, as well as a happy moment in the Middle East.
Were very many people aware that the process was going on after that initial contact?
Well, I think the people who watched the Middle East never kept their eyes on the formal negotiating table. We knew there were back channels. There were many back channels. This was one of many that was in fact working. And there was the expectation that whenever progress came, it would come through a back channel.
Now, there's many people who, again, if they followed this and heard the stunning announcement that agreement had been reached and recognition had been made and now this deal is being signed at the White House, are confused about what exactly it is that is being signed. Mark Bruzonsky, this Gaza-Jericho first option, what does it mean? What's involved?
Well, that's the beauty of the arrangement for the politicians, that everybody can interpret it however they want to. What is really being signed formally is the transfer of local authority to a faction of the Palestinian leadership, and that local authority is then going to be seen as a test for what might in the future be discussed. The Palestinian leadership has been saying at every opportunity that this is statehood, this is independence, this is our road to
We'll continue this in a minute, Mark, or a little later on. We are now watching the first of the dignitaries, Mrs. Gore, arriving to take her place in front of the podium. We will continue to see the guests arrive, take their spots. This is so carefully choreographed, partly because it's an historic occasion, and there are a lot of people, obviously,
Ladies
who
and
feel
gentlemen,
the need to be there.
And Mrs. Rabin.
Mrs. Clinton and Mrs. Rabin now. But also, the choreography is terribly important because everyone is so conscious of the possibility that someone may feel slighted. by the way it's done. So they've planned it out so carefully.
And an interesting story about why this is all happening in Washington. Of all, you know, why not Jerusalem? Why not in Norway, maybe, where these negotiations were held? You know, what is maybe the obvious and not so obvious significance of the United States in all this?
Well, I think both really wanted this in Washington. They needed the seal of the approval from the remaining big power, and both of them asked the United States to do this for them.
Now, here's George Bush arriving. The first time many people have seen him in the White House since he left power after the election. But obviously, he will have had a lot to do with discussions between the two sides over the previous years.
Actually, people said that, in fact, Bill Clinton probably has spent less time on the Middle East than the previous two presidents, being Ronald Reagan and George Bush.
George Bush looks as if he's put on just a little bit of weight since the election campaign.
The Honorable Jimmy Carter and Mrs. Carter.
And here's the other man who worked so very hard on Middle East peace.
Interesting how the view of him has changed so dramatically since he left office.
Would it be fair, do you think, for Jimmy Carter to, not that he would, with his personality, but to claim some fathership of this situation?
Oh, absolutely, Keith. Much of what we're seeing today is entirely consistent with Camp David. He follows on from it, and he deserves a great deal of credit for the process that he started. It just takes a long time sometimes.
Minister of Foreign Affairs of Egypt, the Honorable Anthony Lake, Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs.
Yeah. There's the Foreign Affairs Ambassador from Egypt and from Norway. So these two are being, you know, given a front and center role as well.
Well, Egyptians actually were very active in mediating this. To their credit, they stayed out of the limelight and didn't claim public credit, but they were very important in the secret process.
Maybe that's what it takes to make
Ladies and
deals,
gentlemen,
is people who are prepared to be out of the spotlight.
That's right.
Albert Gore Jr., His Excellency Shimon Peres, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Israel, Mr. Abbas, member of the Executive Council of the Palestine Liberation Organization.
Now these are the people who will be up on the dais. These are the players coming out now. Those will be the two men flanking the Vice President who will be signing the document.
What must be going through their minds now?
I think it's something that they quite never imagined they would be doing.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Warren Christopher, Secretary of State, His Excellency Andrei Khosrow, Minister of the Foreign Affairs of Russian Federation.
These are the two co-chairs of the Madrid conference.
That's right, which didn't appear to be going anywhere.
But the Soviets still have a role, and they're being given that place.
They certainly are. And again, you know, the process works in funny ways.
And the next entry will be the President of the United States, flanked by Yitzhak Rabin and
Ladies
Yasser Arafat.
and gentlemen, Mr. Arafat, Chairman of the Executive Council of the Palestine Liberation Organization, His Excellency Yitzhak Rabin, Prime Minister of Israel, the President of the United States.
Now this is the moment which can only be considered astonishing. The head of state of Israel and the head of the Palestine Liberation Organization walking with the President of the United States to share a dais and sign a document. Mark, you must not feel all that skeptical looking at this.
Goosebumps anyway.
Oh, I've seen scenes before. History changes very fast. Of course, this is a historic moment, but it's not a moment that many of us find impossible to contemplate. There have been negotiations going on literally for a decade involving many Israelis and many high-ranking Jews. When I represented the World Jewish Congress years ago, Phil Klupsnik, Secretary of Commerce in the Carter administration. I was arranging meetings with senior PLO people that were taking place in Paris and up in Canada, actually.
Now we get ready for the speech by the President of the United States.
Prime Minister Rabin, Chairman Arafat, Foreign Minister Perez, Mr. Abbas, President Carter, President Bush, distinguished guests. On behalf of the United States and Russia, co-sponsors of the Middle East peace process, welcome to this great occasion of history and hope. Today, we bear witness to an extraordinary act in one of history's defining dramas. A drama that began in the time of our ancestors when the word went forth from a sliver of land between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea. That hallowed piece of earth, that land of light and revelation, is the home to the memories and dreams of Jews, Muslims, and Christians throughout the world. As we all know, devotion to that land has also been the source of conflict and bloodshed for too long. Throughout this century, bitterness between the Palestinian and Jewish people has robbed the entire region of its resources, its potential, and too many of its sons and daughters. The land has been so drenched in warfare and hatred, the conflicting claims of history etched so deeply in the souls of the combatants there, that many believed the past would always have the upper hand. Then, 14 years ago, the past began to give way, when at this place and upon this desk, 3 men of great vision signed their names to the Camp David Accords. Today we honor the memories of Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat, and we salute the wise leadership of President Jimmy Carter. Then, as now, we heard from those who said that conflict would come again soon. But the peace between Egypt and Israel has endured. Just so, this bold new venture today, this brave gamble that the future can be better than the past, must endure. Years ago in Madrid, another president took a major step on the road to peace by bringing Israel and all her neighbors together to launch direct negotiations. And today we also express our deep thanks for the skillful leadership of President George Bush. Ever since Harry Truman first recognized Israel, every American president, Democrat and Republican, has worked for peace between Israel and her neighbors. Now the efforts of all who have labored before us bring us to this moment, a moment when we dare to pledge what for so long seemed difficult even to imagine, that the security of the Israeli people will be reconciled with the hopes of the Palestinian people, and there will be more security and more hope for all. Today, the leadership of Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization will sign a declaration of principles on interim Palestinian self-government. It charts a course toward reconciliation between two peoples who have both known the bitterness of exile. Now both pledge to put old sorrows and antagonisms behind them and to work for a shared future shaped by the values of the Torah, the Quran, and the Bible. Let us salute also today the government of Norway for its remarkable role in nurturing this agreement. But above all, let us today pay tribute to the leaders who had the courage to lead their people toward peace, away from the scars of battle, the wounds and the losses of the past, toward a brighter tomorrow. The world today thanks Prime Minister Rabin, Foreign Minister Perez, and Chairman Arafat. Their tenacity and vision has given us the promise of a new beginning. What these leaders have done now must be done by others. Their achievement must be a catalyst for progress in all aspects of the peace process. And those of us who support them must be there to help in all aspects. For the peace must render the people who make it more secure. A peace of the brave is within our reach. Throughout the Middle East, there is a great yearning for the quiet miracle of a normal life. We know a difficult road lies ahead. Every peace has its enemies, those who still prefer the easy habits of hatred to the hard labors of reconciliation. But Prime Minister Rabin has reminded us that you do not have to make peace with your friends. And the Quran teaches that if the enemy inclines toward peace, do thou also incline toward peace. Therefore, let us resolve that this new mutual recognition will be a continuing process in which the parties transform the very way they see and understand each other. Let the skeptics of this peace recall what once existed among these people. There was a time when the traffic of ideas and commerce and pilgrims flowed uninterrupted among the cities of the Fertile Crescent. In Spain and the Middle East, Muslims and Jews once worked together to write brilliant chapters in the history of literature and science. All this can come to pass again. Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Chairman, I pledge the active support of the United States of America to the difficult work that lies ahead. The United States is committed to ensuring that the people who are affected by this agreement will be made more secure by it, and to leading the world in marshaling the resources necessary to implement the difficult details that will make real the principles to which you commit yourselves today. Together, let us imagine what can be accomplished if all the energy and ability the Israelis and the Palestinians have invested into your struggle can now be channeled into cultivating the land and freshening the waters, into ending the boycotts and creating new industry, into building a land as bountiful and peaceful as it is holy. Above all, let us dedicate ourselves today to your region's next generation. In this entire assembly, no one is more important than the group of Israeli and Arab children who are seated here with us today. Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Chairman, this day belongs to you. And because of what you have done, tomorrow belongs to them. We must not leave them prey to the politics of extremism and despair, to those who would derail this process because they cannot overcome the fears and hatreds of the past. We must not betray their future. For too long, the young of the Middle East have been caught in a web of hatred not of their own making. For too long, they have been taught from the chronicles of war. Now we can give them the chance to know the season of peace. For them, we must realize the prophecy of Isaiah, that the cry violence shall no more be heard in your land, nor wrack nor ruin within your borders. The children of Abraham, the descendants of Isaac and Ishmael, have embarked together on a bold journey. Together, today, with all our hearts and all our souls, we bid them shalom, salam, peace.
Mr. President, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. President, I would like to thank you and the great American people for peace and support. Indeed, I would like to thank all those who have made this day possible. What we are doing today is more than signing an agreement. It is a revolution. Yesterday, a dream. Today, a commitment. The Israeli and the Palestinian peoples, who fought each other for almost a century, have agreed to move decisively on the path of dialogue, understanding, and cooperation. We live in an ancient land, and as our land is small, so must our reconciliation be great. As our wars have been long, so must our healing be swift. Deep gaps call for lofty bridges. I want to tell the Palestinian delegation that we are sincere, that we mean business. We do not seek to shape your life or determine your destiny. Let all of us turn from bullets to ballots, from guns to shovels. We shall pray with you. We shall offer you our help in making Gaza prosper and Jericho blossom again. As we have promised, we shall negotiate with you a permanent settlement and with all our neighbors a comprehensive peace for all. We shall support the agreement with an economic structure. We shall convert the bitter triangle of Jordanians, Palestinians, and Israelis into a triangle of political triumph and economic prosperity. We shall lower our barriers and widen our roads so goods and guests will be able to move freely all over the places, holy and other places. This should be another Genesis. We have to build a new Commonwealth on our old soil, a Middle East of the people and a Middle East for the children. For their sake, we must put an end to the waste of arms race and invest our resources in education. Ladies and gentlemen, two parallel tragedies have unfolded. Let us become a civic community. Let us bid once and for all farewell to wars, to threats, to human misery. Let us bid farewell to enmity, and may there be no more victims on either side. Let us build a Middle East of hope, where today's food is produced and tomorrow's prosperity is guaranteed. A region with a common market, a Near East with a long-range agenda. We owe it to our fallen soldiers, to the memories of the victims of the Holocaust. Our hearts today grieves for the lost life of young and innocent people yesterday in our own country. Let their memory be our foundation we are establishing today, a memory of peace on fresh and old tombs. Suffering is first of all human. We also feel for the innocent loss of Palestinian life. We begin a new day. The day may be long and the challenges enormous. Our calendar must meet an intensive schedule. Mr. President, historically, you are presiding over a most promising day in the very long history of our region, of our people. I thank all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and let's pray together. Let's add hope to determination, as all of us, since Abraham, believe in freedom, in peace, in the blessing of our great land and great spirit. מירושלים הנצחית, מהירק של הבית הלבן, נתפלל, שלום, שלום, לרחוק ולקרוב, אמר אדוני ורפאתיו. From the eternal city of Jerusalem, from this green promising lawn of the White House, let's say together, in the language of our Bible, peace, peace to him that is far off, and to him that is near, said the Lord, and I will heal him. Thank you.
Read. Now the Palestinian.
سيد الرئيس، أيها السيدات والسادة، في هذه اللحظات التاريخية الممزوجة بمشاعر الغبطة وأقصى درجات الإحساس بمسؤولية ما يجري من أحداث تطال مجمل منطقتنا، أحييكم وأحيي هذا الجمع الكريم، وأتمنى أن يكون هذا اللقاء في واشنطن.
This is Mahmoud Abbas. He is the political director for the PLO, speaking obviously in Arabic. Janice Stein. Oh, now we're getting the translation.
In these historic moments, with feelings of joy that are mixed with a maximum sense of responsibility regarding events that are affecting our entire region, I greet you and I greet this distinguished gathering. I hope that this meeting in Washington will prove to be the onset of a positive and constructive change that will serve the interests of the Palestinian and the Israeli peoples.
لقد وصلنا إلى هذه النقطة إيمانا منا بأن التعايش السلمي والتعاون هو السبيل الوحيد إلى التفاهم وتحقيق أمان الطرفين الفلسطيني والإسرائيلي. والاتفاق الذي نوقعه اليوم هو تعبير عن قرارنا في منظمة التحرير الفلسطينية بأن نفتح صفحة جديدة في علاقاتنا مع إسرائيل.
We have come to this point because we believe that peaceful coexistence and cooperation are the only means for reaching understanding and for realizing the hopes of the Palestinians and the Israelis. The agreement we will sign reflects the decision we made in the Palestine Liberation Organization to turn a new page in our relationship with Israel.
ونحن نعلم جيدا أن هذه مجرد بداية لمسيرة تحف بها مخاطر ومصاعب عديدة، ولكن إرادتنا المشتركة في تجاوز كل ما يعترضها قضية السلام، وإيماننا المشترك بأن السلام هو السبيل الوحيد إلى الإيمان إلى الأمن والاستقرار، وتطلعنا المشترك إلى غد آمن يتميز بالتعاون، كل ذلك سيمكننا من التغلب على كافة العقبات بفضل تأييد المجتمع الدولي. وأخص هنا بالذات حكومة الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية التي يقع على عاتقها الاستمرار في لعب دور فعال ومميز في المرحلة القادمة من أجل استكمال هذا الإنجاز العظيم.
We know quite well that this is merely the beginning of a journey that is surrounded by numerous dangers and difficulties, and yet our mutual determination to overcome everything that stands in the way of the cause for peace, our common belief that peace is the only means to security and stability, and our mutual aspiration for a secure peace characterized by cooperation. All this will enable us to overcome all obstacles with the support of the international community. And here I would like to mention in particular the United States government, which will shoulder the responsibility of continuing to play an effective and a distinct role in the next stage so that this great achievement may be completed.
وفي هذا المجال يهمنا التأكيد بأننا نتطلع بأمل وتفاؤل شديدين إلى 2 من اليوم، حيث تبدأ مفاوضات الوضع النهائي لبلادنا لحل القضايا الأساسية الباقية، وخاصة قضية القدس واللاجئين والمستوطنات، وعندها نضع اللبنة الأخيرة في صرح السلام الذي نرسي قواعده هذا اليوم.
In this regard, it is important to me to affirm that we are looking forward with a great deal of hope and optimism to a date that is 2 years from today, when negotiations over the final status of our country are set to begin. We will then settle the remaining fundamental issues, especially those of Jerusalem, the refugees, and the settlements. At that time, we will be laying the last brick in the edifice of peace, whose foundation has been established today.
إن التحدي الرئيسي الذي يواجهه الشعب الفلسطيني هو عملية التنمية الاقتصادية بعد سنوات من النضال الذي تحملت خلاله مرافقنا ومؤسساتنا الوطنية عبئا ثقيلا ومرهقا، ونحن نتطلع اليوم إلى دعم العالم وتشجيعه لنا في معركة البناء والتطور التي بدأت هذا اليوم.
Economic development is the principal challenge facing the Palestinian people after years of struggle, during which our national infrastructure and institutions were overburdened and drained. We are looking to the world for its support and encouragement in our struggle for growth and development, which begins today.
أشكر لحكومة الولايات المتحدة وحكومة روسيا الاتحادية دورهما ومساعيهما وحرصهما على رعاية مسيرة السلام، كما أذكر بالتقدير دور الحكومة النرويجية في إخراج هذا الاتفاق إلى حيز الوجود، وأتطلع إلى أن نشهد قريبا نتائج إيجابية بالنسبة إلى باقي المسارات العربية الإسرائيلية، حتى نمضي وأشقائنا العرب سويا في هذه المسيرة السلمية الشاملة. وشكرا.
I thank the government of the United States of America and the government of the Russian Federation for the part they played and for their efforts and their sponsorship of the peace process. I also appreciate the role played by the government of Norway in bringing about this agreement. and I look forward to seeing positive results soon on the remaining Arab-Israeli tracks so we can proceed together with our Arab brothers on this comprehensive quest for peace. Thank you.
The next stage now, we'll see the signing of the historic document. And at this stage, Perez and Mahmoud Abbas will do the signing.
Ladies and gentlemen, we kindly ask that you remain seated during the document signing.
What we are waiting to see after the signing takes place is what the heads of, I guess we can say heads of state.
Well, heads of government.
Heads of government, certainly, the Prime Minister and the Chairman of the PLO, to see how they will, or if they will shake one another's hands, how they will greet each other.
Let's just, as Shimon Peres prepares to put his signature on this document, Mark Bruzonsky, who is with us in Washington, just go through again what it is they're signing.
Well, I think the political choreography is masterful. It has been for the past few weeks. They are not really signing what the implication is that they're signing. The speech by the president gave the impression that this is it, they're signing their peace, everything from now on is going to be nice, now we focus on economic development. All they are really signing in terms of legalities is the transfer of local authority from the Israeli occupation army to the Fatah wing of the PLO, because it's important to note that the foreign minister of the PLO, Kadumi, the longtime foreign minister, the reason he's not here signing it is he's one of 3 major members of the executive committee who resigned in protest. Mm-hmm. So we're witnessing something of great historic importance depending upon what now takes place in the next years. And I would have to say the choreography, as I said, the political choreography of this shotgun marriage has been handled beautifully, not just this morning, but ever since the PLO, which I think we have to talk about the Fatah wing of the PLO, and the government of Israel decided to take the steps that they are now this morning finalizing.
Well, again, one thing is you say, what exactly are they signing? The Palestinians will still say, and the Palestinian representative to the peace talk this morning said on this program, we're talking about Palestinian self-rule here, and the Israelis say no.
On the other hand, Janice, I think your perspective is that once they've gone this far, how can they go back?
That's right. The process really has a momentum of its own, and they're very sophisticated. They understand that each has its own constituency. It's perfectly okay for them to read it differently for now, in the expectation that 2 years from now, it'll be almost impossible to undo. The cost will be so great to both parties.
Mark?
If I can jump in, Keith, I do not believe this is undoable. I think the Israelis and the Americans would like it to be undoable because this is an agreement which is 95% what they have wanted and maybe 5% what the PLO has always said it wanted. So, of course, the people who have gone into the bazaar and the people who are buying at the best price want to say, this is undoable, this is a great deal, this is wonderful, and from now on, we're all going to abide by it. The Palestinians are getting far less than they, at minimum, thought they could possibly accept a few weeks ago, and for them, it's terribly important this move forward, and it moved forward fast.
Yeah, and they obviously need the economic assistance from the United States and from the rest of the world also, in order for this thing to work on the ground among Palestinians, who will see that there is some benefit for their having made those concessions.
Well, yes, the Russian foreign minister, I should just mention, is now signing this document, and then the Secretary of State Warren Christopher will sign it. Interesting looking at the men on the podium, Janice Stein, just to get your reaction on that. In a sense, old men who've been at this a very long time. Do you think this was a last chance for their leadership to guide this through, or could another generation have done it more quickly?
I think this was really their last chance, and they were the only ones who could do it. Yasser Arafat was clearly necessary to this process. He's the only one with the political clout among Palestinians to lend legitimacy to this. Rabin and Peres are the last of their generation with this kind of authority. And yet, who are they really doing it for, Valerie? They're doing it for the young people who are being killed on both sides as a result of this conflict.
Interesting that you were pointing out, and here's Warren Christopher to sign now, that the Israelis needed Yasser Arafat, so they would not want to see him, as Mark was saying earlier, he was going down. They wouldn't want to see him go down. He is the enemy they needed to make peace with.
Absolutely, and they have an enormous stake now in his survival and in his success over the next 9 months as this process moves forward. They really want him to be able to consolidate power in Gaza, in the West Bank, and turn this process into something that does have a dynamic that will make it unstoppable.
Now, we want to see what will happen after the signing by Warren Christopher. This is where Clinton will shake hands separately with Mr. Rabin and Mr. Arafat. Let's watch to see what happens here.
This is a difficult moment, both for Chairman Arafat and for Prime Minister Rabin.
The only unscripted moment of the morning. There's the handshake.
And that was due largely to the President, I suspect.
That was Mr. Arafat's move, and a move Mr. Arafat clearly had decided to make some time ago. The others a little less sure that Clinton wanted to be as upfront as he was.
Now, again, there were questions before, would he go for a traditional bear hug? There were questions even about whether he'd wear his pistol as he traditionally has done, but he made those two moves and decided that that would be the appropriate thing.
A few closing words here.
Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Chairman Arafat, members of Congress, distinguished visitors, guests, friends, and colleagues, I'm honored to have witnessed the signing of this agreement on behalf of the United States. Millions of people have dreamed of this moment for this very region. The Israelis and the Palestinians have taken a dramatic step toward a just, lasting, and comprehensive peace that can lift the lives of the people of the Middle East. They overcame seemingly insurmountable obstacles in framing the Declaration of Principles and the terms for mutual recognition. They've broken through the barriers of hatred and fear. Throughout the process, they've demonstrated extraordinary courage and statesmanship. This gives genuine hope that they will complete the journey that has been begun today. This achievement was the product of sustained effort, international in scope, and thoroughly bipartisan here in the United States. The foundation for the breakthrough, as the President said, was laid at the Madrid Conference of October 1991, which overcame the impediments to direct Arab-Israeli talks and launched a real peace process. The Madrid success, in turn, could not have been realized without its own foundation, the 1978 Camp David Accords and the 1974 and 75 disengagement agreements involving Israel, Egypt, and Syria. In the distinguished group here assembled today, seated down here in the front rows, I see those responsible not only for today's breakthrough, but also men and women who have toiled for decades in the search for peace in the Middle East. I salute and congratulate each one of you. I also salute and congratulate those who have helped at particular times. In particular, I express appreciation to Foreign Minister Holst and his Norwegian colleagues who worked under very difficult circumstances and made it possible to facilitate the negotiation of the Declaration of Principles. We also owe a debt of gratitude to Foreign Minister Moussa and his Egyptian colleagues and many, many others who gave unstinting help to the peace process. We are all proud of this remarkable. We also understand that much more remains to be done if this newly planted tree is to bear fruit. The United States is committed to a comprehensive peace between Israel and all of its Arab neighbors. We hope and believe that this agreement will spur progress in the talks between Israel and Syria, Jordan, and Lebanon. The United States is prepared to do its part in the negotiations that lie ahead. We will spare no effort in helping the parties turn the agreements at the table into realities on the ground. We will remain a full partner in the search for peace. But certainly we are not the sole partner. We need the entire international community to join us in this work and to oppose any effort to subvert the peace. This Israeli-Palestinian agreement cannot be permitted to fail. Many problems remain to be solved. Today's historic agreement demonstrates that the Middle East does not need to be a cauldron of hostility. It can instead be a cradle of hope. Thank you.
Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, the Chairman, on behalf of President Yeltsin, I would like to congratulate you and other colleagues and friends here who made possible through their committed effort and goodwill this major step on the long road to comprehensive peace in the Middle East. I think it's really time to rejoice, but no time for euphoria. Unfortunately, this is only first step, major, but first step on the long, long road. And I would like to
This is Andrei
assure you
Kozyrev, the
that Russia
Foreign Minister
is
of Russia.
one of the co-sponsors, not only witnesses, but co-sponsors of the peace process, will spare no effort, together with the United States, with the United Nations and other interested parties, to go on this road and not let this major event to fail. It is only ironic that in time when Middle Eastern peace process seems to be on track, and I'm sure it will move towards lasting peace, there are other forces which threaten security in the region. 3 days ago I was in Kabul, Afghanistan, and on Tajik-Afghan border. And even there we can see those forces of subversion, terrorism, and extremism, religious, and not only religious, political extremism, doing their destructive job. I know that in other parts of this region there are also signs of this new danger, and I hope that we will not limit our joint effort only to the peace between Israel and its neighbors, not only for the cause of Palestinians to gain their legitimate rights, but also to see for stability in the whole region. And in this, Russia will be also true and determined co-sponsor. Once again, thank you for the effort done by all the distinguished presidents, foreign ministers, actual and former, and I hope that further generations of politicians will be not so much doing with the peace, but rather with the peace dividend in the Middle East. It's high time for that. Thank you.
We will be extending our coverage until the leaders have all spoken, which may take us past noon Eastern Standard Time, so stay with us.
President Clinton, the President of the United States, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this signing of the Israeli-Palestinian Declaration of Principle here today, it's not so easy. Neither for myself, as a soldier in Israel's war, nor for the people of Israel, nor to the Jewish people in the diaspora, who are watching us now with great hope mixed with apprehension. It is certainly not easy for the families of the victims of the wars, violence, terror, whose pain will never heal, for the many thousands who defended our lives in their own and have even sacrificed their lives for our own. For them, this ceremony has come too late. Today, on the eve of an opportunity for peace, and perhaps end of violence and wars, we remember each and every one of them with everlasting love. We have come from Jerusalem, the ancient and eternal capital of the Jewish people. We have come from an anguished and grieving land. We have come from a people, a home, a family that has not known a single year, not a single month in which mothers have not wept for their sons. We have come to try and put an end to the hostilities so that our children, our children's children, will no longer experience the painful cost of war, violence and terror. We have come to secure their lives and to ease the sorrow and the painful memories of the past, to hope and pray for peace. Let me say to you, the Palestinians, we are destined to live together on the same soil, in the same land. We, the soldiers who have returned from battles stained with blood, we who have seen our relatives and friends killed before our eyes, we who have attended their funerals and cannot look into the eyes of their parents, we who have come from a land where parents buried their children, we who have fought against you, the Palestinians, we say to you today, in a loud and a clear voice, enough of blood and tears. Enough! We have no desire for revenge. We harbor no hatred towards you. We like you, our people. People who want to build a home, to plant a tree, to love, live side by side with you, in dignity, in empathy, as human beings, as free men. We are today giving peace a chance and saying to you, and saying again to you, enough. Let us pray. that a day will come when we all will say farewell to the arms. We wish to open a new chapter in the sad book of our lives together, a chapter of mutual recognition, of good neighborliness, of mutual respect, of understanding. We hope to embark on a new era in the history of the Middle East. Today here in Washington, at the White House, we will begin a new reckoning in the relations between peoples, between parents tired of war, between children who will not know war. President of the United States, ladies and gentlemen, our inner strength, our high moral values have been derived for thousands of years from the book of the books, in one of which, Kohelet, we read, "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace." Ladies and gentlemen, the time for peace has come. In 2 days, the Jewish people will celebrate the beginning of a new year. I believe, I hope, I pray that the new year will bring a message of redemption for all peoples. A good year for you, for all of you. A good year for Israelis and Palestinians. A good year for all the peoples of the Middle East. A good year for our American friends who so want peace and are helping to achieve it. For presidents and members of previous administrations, especially for you, President Clinton, and your staff, for all citizens of the world, may peace come to all your homes. In the Jewish tradition, it is customary to conclude our prayers with the word Amen. As you said, Amen. With your permission, men of peace, I shall conclude with words taken from the prayer recited by Jews daily. And whoever of you who volunteer, I would ask the entire audience to join me in saying Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom alenu ve'al kol Israel. Amen.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السيد الرئيس، سيداتي سادتي، أود أن أعبر عن تقديرنا الكبير للرئيس كلينتون وحكومته لرعاية هذا الحدث التاريخي الذي يرقبه العالم بأسره، إنني يا سيد الرئيس أغتنم الفرصة لأؤكد لكم ولشعبكم العظيم أننا نشاطركم قيم الحرية والعدالة وحقوق الإنسان التي يطمح شعبي إلى التمتع بها.
In the name of God, the most merciful, the passionate, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express our tremendous appreciation to President Clinton and to his administration for sponsoring this historic event which the entire world has been waiting for. Mr. President, I am taking this opportunity to assure you and to assure the great American people that we share your values for freedom, justice, and human rights, values for which my people have been striving.
كما يأمل شعبي أن يكون هذا الاتفاق الذي نوقع عليه اليوم هو بداية طي صفحة الآلام والعذاب التي استمرت طوال هذا القرن، وأن يفتتح عهد السلام والتعايش والمساواة في الحقوق. إننا نعول على دوركم يا سيد الرئيس ودور جميع الدول التي ترى أن السلام في العالم لا يكتمل بدون سلام الشرق الأوسط.
My people are hoping that this agreement which we are signing today marks the beginning of the end of a chapter of pain and suffering which has lasted throughout this century. My people are hoping that this agreement which we are signing today will usher in an age of peace, coexistence, and equal rights. We are relying on your role, Mr. President, and on the role of all the countries which believe that without peace in the Middle East, peace in the world will not be complete.
إن تطبيق الاتفاق والانتقال نحو الحل النهائي بعد سنتين لتنفيذ قراري مجلس الأمن 242 و 338 في جميع جوانبهما ولحل قضايا القدس والمستوطنات واللاجئين والحدود هي مسؤولية فلسطينية وإسرائيلية، وهي كذلك مسؤولية دولية شاملة للمساعدة في التغلب على المصاعب الهائلة التي لا تزال تعترض هذه المسيرة من أجل الوصول بها نحو السلام النهائي والشامل.
Enforcing the agreement and moving toward the final settlement after 2 years to implement all aspects of UN resolutions 242 and 338 in all of their aspects and resolve all the issues of Jerusalem, the settlement, the refugees, and the boundaries will be a Palestinian and an Israeli responsibility. It is also the responsibility of the international community in its entirety to help the parties overcome the tremendous difficulties which are still standing in the way of reaching a final and comprehensive settlement.
We've been watching Yasser Arafat make his address on the south lawn of the White House. I think we can go back to that now.
That feed temporarily.
Briefly interrupted. Here we are.
التي نلتقي معها اليوم لأول مرة، مؤكدا أن القرار الصعب الذي توصلنا إليه معا كان يحتاج إلى شجاعة كبيرة واستثنائية. إننا سوف نحتاج إلى مزيد من الشجاعة والتصميم لنواصل مسيرة بناء التعايش والسلام بيننا. إن هذا ممكن، وهذا سوف يتحقق بالإرادة المشتركة وبالعمل على إرساء قواعد السلام العادل والشامل مع جميع الأطراف وعلى كل المسارات. وشعبنا لا يعتبر أن ممارسة حقه في تقرير المصير يمكن أن يشكل اعتداء على حقوق جيرانه أو مساسا بأمنهم، بل إن إلغاء الشعور بالغبن والظلم التاريخي هو أقوى ضمانة لتحقيق الحياة المشتركة والانفتاح بين شعبينا وبين أجيالنا القادمة.
Now, as we stand on the threshold of this new historic era, let me address the people of Israel and their leaders with whom we are meeting today for the first time. And let me assure them that the difficult decision we reached together was one that required great and exceptional courage. We will need more courage and determination to continue the course of building coexistence and peace between us. This is possible, and it will happen with mutual determination and with the effort that will be made with all parties on all the tracks to establish the foundations of a just and comprehensive peace. Our people do not consider that exercising the right to self-determination could violate the rights of their neighbors or infringe on their security. Rather, putting an end to their feelings of being wronged and of having suffered an historic injustice is the strongest guarantee to achieve coexistence and openness between our two peoples and future generations.
إن شعبينا يراقبان اليوم هذا الأمل التاريخي ويريد إعطاء فرصة حقيقية للسلام.
Our two peoples are awaiting today this historic hope, and they want to give peace a real chance.
ومثل هذا التحول سوف يعطينا الفرصة للدخول في عملية البناء والتطور الاقتصادي والاجتماعي والثقافي الذي نتطلع إلى أوسع مساهمة دولية فيه، كما يتيح الفرصة أمام جميع أشكال التعاون على نطاق واسع وفي جميع الميادين.
Such a shift will give us an opportunity to embark upon the process of economic, social, and cultural growth and development. And we hope that international participation in that process will be as extensive as it can be. This shift will also provide an opportunity for all forms of cooperation on a broad scale and in all fields.
أشكركم يا سيد الرئيس، ونأمل أن يكون لقاؤنا بداية جديدة لعلاقات مثمرة وفعالة بين الشعبين الأمريكي والفلسطيني.
I thank you, Mr. President. We hope that our meeting will be a new beginning for fruitful and effective relations between the American people and the Palestinian people.